The crisp Nevada air does little to cool the heat in my hand. $8,500. Cash. I watch the taillights of my vintage Mustang disappear down the asphalt ribbon of the auto dealership's far exit. A stranger behind the wheel. My phone buzzes in my pocket, a vibration against my thigh. I already know who it is. After 3 days of radio silence, Sarah's finally calling. Perfect timing. I let it buzz a second longer, then a third. Let her simmer in whatever concoction of panic and belated concern she's managed to cook up. When I finally answer, my voice is all calm, a smooth lake surface hiding God knows what underneath. Hello? Marcus? Oh, thank God. Where are you? Where's my car? I've been calling you for hours. Her voice is a frantic squall, just like I pictured. Hours? Try days, sweetheart. Define hours, Sarah, I say, the words cool and measured. I can almost hear the gears whirring in her head, the confusion, the dawning alarm. What? What are you talking about? Where is the Mustang? I just got to the gas station where I left you and it's gone. Did you move it? Did it get towed? Ah, the gas station. 72 hours ago, that's where this story, our story, took its nosedive. Or rather, where she pushed it off a cliff. We were supposed to be on a cross-country trip, a fresh start after the wreckage of my divorce. Her idea, this healing journey, I'd poured everything into it, into us. I trusted her. Implicitly. Stupidly. One moment we're filling up, the next she's on a hushed, urgent call, her back to me. Then those 5 little words. I need some space, Marcus. Before I could even process it, she was in the car, engine roaring, tires spitting gravel. I stood there, watching those taillights shrink into the vast Nevada emptiness, leaving me with no wallet. She'd offered to pay for gas, no phone charger, nothing but the clothes on my back, and a gaping hole where my faith in her used to be. Towed? I echo now, a small, humorless chuckle escaping me. No, not towed. Sold? Silence on her end. A beautiful, stunned silence. I can picture her face, the perfectly sculpted features contorting in disbelief, then rage. You what? She finally sputters. Sold it, I repeat, relishing the word. About 15 minutes ago, actually. Nice guy. Paid in cash. $8,500. Not bad for a quick sale, right? I described the transaction in detail. The handshake, the counting of the bills, the way the afternoon sun glinted off the freshly waxed paint as he drove it away. Each word is a little pellet of retribution. The metallic taste of revenge is still sharp on my tongue, mingling with the phantom grit of desert dust that seems permanently lodged in my throat. You can't do that! That's my car! I'm calling the police, Marcus! You stole my car! Her voice is climbing, nearing a shriek. This is the Sarah I'm starting to get to know. Actually, I say, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. A quiet power move I've been rehearsing for 3 days. I don't think they'll see it that way. See, I happened to find the title. And whose name do you think is on it? Right alongside yours? Legally, Sarah, it was our car. The scream that rips through the phone is immensely satisfying. The rage that had been a cold, hard knot in my stomach for 72 hours started to unfurl, replaced by a chilling sort of clarity. This whole road trip, this healing journey, as she'd billed it, felt like a meticulously crafted lie from the start. My divorce had been brutal, leaving me emotionally raw and financially strained. Sarah had swept in like a vibrant desert bloom, all bright colors and promises of new beginnings. The trip was her solution, a way to shed the skin of my past life and embrace a future with her. She'd insisted we take her car. that beautiful, gas-guzzling vintage Mustang. "It's got character, Marcus. It'll be an adventure," she'd chirped. Then, just before we left, she'd casually suggested, "Hey, why don't we put both our names on the insurance? You know, just for emergencies, in case something happens to me and you need to drive or deal with things." It seemed logical at the time, reasonable even. Now it felt like the first thread in a very tangled web. But a little voice, a newly cautious part of me forged in the fires of my divorce, had whispered a warning. So while she was in the shower one morning, I'd quietly slipped into the glove compartment, found the registration and insurance documents. My phone camera clicked softly as I photographed the title. A quiet power move. A just-in-case that now felt like a stroke of genius. I hadn't known why I was doing it, not really. Just a nagging feeling, an itch I couldn't quite scratch. Back at that god-forsaken Nevada gas station 3 days ago, the itch became a full-blown rash. We'd been driving for days, the rhythm of the road a hypnotic lull. Then, the stop for gas. Sarah had been quiet for the last 100 miles, a subtle shift in her usual ebullience. While I was at the pump, her phone rang. I saw her turn away, her voice dropping to a murmur, her body language tense. When she hung up, her face was a mask of forced nonchalance. "Everything okay?" I'd asked. "Yeah, fine," she'd said too quickly. "Just something came up. I need some space, Marcus." "Space? What are you talking about? We're in the middle of nowhere." "I know, I can't do this right now." Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. They were cold, distant. The warmth I'd basked in for months had vanished, replaced by an Arctic chill. Then, the slam of the car door, the roar of the engine. I remember the acrid smell of stale coffee from a nearby bin, mingling with the sharp tang of motor oil as I watched her brake lights, those 2 crimson eyes, vanish over the horizon. Just like that. No explanation. No concern for how I'd get home, how I'd eat, where I'd sleep. Nothing. That first night was hell. The gas station attendant, a weary-looking man with kind eyes, let me use the restroom. I tried to sleep on the cold tile floor, using a wad of paper napkins as a pillow. Every creak of the building, every distant truck rumbling past, was her coming back. But she never did. The next morning, the attendant gave me $20 and a sympathetic nod. Enough for a Greyhound ticket. That bus ride was a special kind of purgatory. 18 hours of stale air, crying babies, and the ceaseless thrum of the tires on the asphalt, each mile a tiny hammer blow, forging my anger into something hard and sharp. Revenge. I didn't just want it, I needed it. It was the only thing that kept me from completely falling apart. I plotted with a singular focus, the details crystallizing with every passing mile marker. I got back to my apartment, the one we'd started sharing, the one that was supposed to be our place, expecting I don't know what. A note? An awkward confrontation? What I found was an echo. Her clothes were gone from the closet. Her toiletries vanished from the bathroom. Her knickknacks, the little things that had started to make my apartment feel like a home again, were all gone. She'd already moved out, planned, methodical, and utterly ruthless. The knot in my stomach tightened. She hadn't just stranded me, she'd erased me. The emptiness of the apartment was a stark reminder of her betrayal, but it also fueled a grim determination. She thought she'd played me, used me as a convenient ride to wherever she'd scurried off to. It was time to find out what that emergency really was. My hands, I noticed, with a detached sort of surprise, trembled as I opened my laptop. Social media, the modern confessional, the breadcrumb trail for the scorned. It didn't take long. Sarah wasn't exactly subtle. Her Instagram, usually a curated feed of artistic shots and bubbly selfies, had a new, suspiciously romantic glow. Photos of a rustic mountain cabin, sunsets over pine trees. And then, the kicker, a selfie. Her beaming with a guy. Not just any guy. Derek. Her ex. The one she'd sworn was ancient history, a learning experience she'd long since moved past. They were kissing. A deep, passionate, we just reconciled kind of kiss. The caption? Sometimes you have to go back to find your way forward. #reunited, #mountain magic, #true calling. I stared at the screen, the pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity. She'd been planning this for weeks. The road trip, the healing journey, it was all a lie. I was just the chauffeur, the unwitting accomplice in her grand plan to reunite with Derek. He lived in Colorado, I remembered her mentioning once, in passing. Close to Nevada. Close enough for a quick detour. Close enough to dump me and make her grand entrance. My mind flashed back to the title, to that quiet power move of photographing the documents. Partners, she'd said when suggesting we put both names on the insurance. Partners. The irony was a bitter pill. I'd insisted, in a moment of what I'd thought was shared responsibility, on being added to the car's registration too, not just the insurance. If we're sharing the driving and the journey, it only makes sense, I'd argued mildly. She'd waved it off, eager to get on the road, probably never imagining it would matter. A quick search of state DMV laws confirmed it. Co-ownership, with right of survivorship, which didn't apply here or as tenants in common. Without explicit language stating otherwise, tenancy in common was usually the default, meaning we each owned a share. Meaning, theoretically, I could sell my share. Or, with possession being 9/10 of the law and her abandoning the vehicle, I could likely sell the whole damn thing if I found the right kind of buyer. The taste of the black coffee I was chugging was sharp, almost acidic, mirroring the burn in my gut. This wasn't just about getting back at her anymore. This was about leveling the playing field. She'd used me, discarded me, and thought she'd get away with it scot-free. She didn't know about the photos of the title. She didn't know about the quiet fury brewing inside me. My next search was for used car dealerships. Specifically, ones that paid cash. Ones that weren't too fussy about paperwork, especially if the price was right and the car was clean. The Mustang was pristine, her baby. She'd kept it immaculate. That, at least, would work in my favor. I found a place on the outskirts of town, a little grimy, with reviews that hinted at a no questions asked policy for the right vehicles. Perfect. A new notification popped up on Sarah's Instagram, a comment from a friend. OMG, so happy for you. When did you guys get back together? Last I heard you were road tripping with that new guy? Sarah's reply was swift. Just a casual thing. Didn't work out. This is real. Casual thing. That's what I was. A casual thing to be used and discarded. Then, another thought struck me. Her apartment. The one she'd moved into after leaving her last place. She'd been cagey about the lease details. I still had access to some of her old emails, a leftover from when I'd helped her set up her laptop. A quick search. Bingo. A lease agreement. And the end date? Yesterday. Her lease had expired yesterday. She had nowhere to park the Mustang when she finally decided to grace our city with her presence again. Nowhere to go. The pieces weren't just falling into place. They were forming a beautiful, intricate mosaic of poetic justice. The spare key to the Mustang was still on my keychain. She'd never asked for it back. An oversight? Arrogance? Probably a bit of both. She likely assumed I was still stranded in Nevada, or, if I had made it back, that I'd be too heartbroken or too spineless to do anything. She underestimated me. Badly. I found the Mustang parked on a residential street a few blocks from my apartment, tucked away neatly. She must have left it there before taking off with Derek, assuming it would be safe until her triumphant return. The familiar vanilla air freshener scent hit me as I opened the door, a scent that once comforted me, a reminder of our shared journeys, now only fueled the cold fire in my veins. It was a sickeningly sweet perfume of her betrayal. Driving it to the dealership on the edge of town felt final. This wasn't just a car, it was a symbol of her deception, and I was about to liquidate it. The dealership was exactly as advertised, a dusty lot, a peeling sign, and a man whose eyes seemed to assess the value of everything, and everyone, he saw. I was all business. 1968 Ford Mustang, excellent condition, original engine mostly, low mileage for its age. I'm looking for a quick sale, cash. He circled the car slowly, like a vulture sizing up a meal. He kicked the tires, peered under the hood, ran a hand over the flawless paint. Title? Right here. I produced the copy I'd made, plus the original I'd retrieved from the glove compartment. I'd also found her little pink registration slip. My name, clear as day, alongside hers. Second owner on here, he grunted, tapping Sarah's name. My business partner, I said smoothly. She's authorized me to sell. We're dissolving the partnership. I didn't blink. Cash, as they say, talks. And a classic Mustang in this condition, it practically sings. We haggled, of course. It's part of the dance, but I held firm, my earlier research on its market value giving me an anchor. He knew I wanted a quick sale, but he also knew the car was a gem. Finally, we landed on $8,500. Not the absolute top dollar I could have gotten with more time and a private sale, but fast, clean, and untraceable. Perfect. I savored each signature on the sale paperwork. Marcus Thorne. A name he wouldn't forget, but one that would mean nothing to Sarah when she inevitably started sniffing around. He counted out the bills, crisp hundreds and fifties, as a final quiet power move. Before handing over the keys, I retrieved Sarah's few remaining personal items from the glove compartment and trunk, a pair of sunglasses, a faded map of California, a hideous fluffy dice thing she hung from the rearview mirror. I photographed each one with my phone, a little evidentiary pile. Just in case. Pleasure doing business with you, the dealer said, his eyes already scanning the lot for his next customer. He didn't care about Sarah. He didn't care about our dissolving partnership. He cared about the car and the cash. I walked out of that dealership with a thick envelope in my jacket pocket and a lightness in my step I hadn't felt in days. My first stop was my bank. I deposited the entire amount immediately. A clean transaction, legal, final. As I walked out of the bank, my phone, now fully charged thanks to a new cable, lit up. 17 missed calls from Sarah, all within the last hour. She must have finally made it back to the gas station. Finally realized her precious Mustang wasn't waiting for her. The panic must be setting in beautifully. I smiled. Let it. It took her another 5 hours to appear at my apartment door. 5 hours I spent methodically purging the last remnants of her existence from my space. Every stray bobby pin, every forgotten book, every lingering scent of her perfume. Gone. The knock was more of a frantic banging. I took a deep breath, smoothed my expression into one of placid neutrality, and opened the door. She looked like a storm cloud had personally rained on her parade and then electrocuted her for good measure. Her hair was wild, her eyes red-rimmed and blazing. She alternated between tears and fury, a volatile cocktail I was now immune to. "Marcus! What did you do? Where is my car?" she shrieked, pushing past me into the apartment. Her eyes scanned the living room, probably looking for signs of the Mustang, or perhaps for any remaining leverage she thought she had over me. "We've been over this, Sarah," I said calmly, closing the door. I sold it. You can't just sell my car. I'm calling the police. I already told you this is grand theft auto. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers shaking. Go ahead, I said, gesturing to the device. But before you do, perhaps you'd like to see this. I walked over to my coffee table, where I'd neatly laid out the bill of sale, a copy of the vehicle registration with both our names, and a printout of the relevant sections of the state's co-ownership laws. As you can see, my name is on the title. As a co-owner, I have certain rights. And given that you abandoned the vehicle and me several states away, I believe my actions were justifiable. She stared at the papers, her face paling, the legal jargon, the official-looking stamps, the undeniable presence of my name. It was all sinking in. Her bravado began to crumble. This is insane. You tricked me. Did I? Or did you assume I was an idiot you could just use and discard? My voice was still quiet, but there was an edge to it now, a hint of the steel I'd been forging. She lunged then, not for me, but for my laptop, which was sitting open on the desk. You planned this. You set me up. You probably have messages on there, something to prove you stole it. I sidestepped her easily. Looking for evidence, Sarah, of what? Your affair? Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with a new kind of fear. What are you talking about? Oh, I think you know. Derek, the mountain cabin, the romantic reunion. I let the details hang in the air. The sharp scent of her desperation sweat, a cloying mix of fear and anger, filled the small space between us. It was a far cry from the expensive perfume she usually wore. How did you know? She whispered, her fight visibly draining away. You're not as careful as you think, Sarah. This was the part I'd been waiting for. After you so kindly left me high and dry in Nevada, I had a lot of time to think, and to do a little research. Turns out a good private investigator is worth every penny. Her jaw dropped. You hired a PI? Best investment I've made all year, I said, allowing myself a small, cold smile. This was another quiet power move, one designed to show her just how far I was willing to go. He was very thorough, provided a rather comprehensive timeline of your renewed relationship with Derek. It seems your emergency had been in the works for quite some time. I pulled out my phone and began to scroll through a gallery of photos. Not the ones from her Instagram, but candid shots. Sarah and Derek leaving a coffee shop, hands linked, 2 weeks before our road trip. Sarah and Derek at a concert, his arm around her, a month ago. Sarah and Derek. Well, the list went on. Clear, undeniable proof of her duplicity, dating back 2 solid months. Her defense, already teetering, completely collapsed. The photos were irrefutable. She sank onto the edge of my sofa, the fight gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed despair. I made a mistake, Marcus, she mumbled, tears finally starting to flow freely. Real tears this time, not the crocodile variety. I was confused. I didn't mean to hurt you like this. Didn't you? I asked, my voice devoid of sympathy. No, please, Marcus, I need that car. It's all I have. I'll pay you back, every cent. We can work something out, please. She looked up at me, her face a mask of desperation. Begging. It was a good look on her. I let her squirm for a long moment, enjoying the reversal of roles. She, who had held all the power, who had callously discarded me, was now at my mercy. All right, Sarah, I said finally, my tone deceptively mild. I'll consider it. I might be willing to help you, if you do one little thing for me first. Hope flickered in her tear-filled eyes. Anything, Marcus, anything. She had no idea. It's quite simple, really, I began, pacing slowly in front of her. The musty smell of the cardboard boxes stacked in the corner, filled with the last of her belongings that I'd packed up, seemed to punctuate the moment. She was, in every sense of the word, displaced. "I want a public apology." Her eyes narrowed. "A public apology? For what?" "For everything, Sarah. For abandoning me in Nevada. For cheating on me with Derek. For using me as a free ride to get to him. For lying to me for months." I ticked off each offense on my fingers, my voice remaining calm, almost gentle, which seemed to unsettle her more than shouting would have. She recoiled. "On social media? You want me to post that on social media? Are you crazy? That'll ruin me." "More than you've ruined my trust? My plans? The last few months of my life?" I raised an eyebrow. "Besides, you're already homeless, carless, and, I suspect, about to be boyfriendless once Derek gets the full picture. What more do you have to lose?" I let that sink in. Her pride, that fierce, often misplaced shield she wore, visibly crumbled as the stark reality of her situation hit her. I can't just write all that," she stammered, looking for a way out, a negotiation. "Can't I just say I'm sorry for the misunderstanding? For things not working out?" I smiled, a slow, deliberate expression that held no warmth. "Oh, you won't have to write a thing, Sarah." Another quiet power move, meticulously prepared. I pulled a folded piece of paper from my back pocket. "I've already drafted the post for you. All you have to do is copy and paste, exactly as written. No edits, no additions, no omissions. Post it as is, or you get nothing. No car, no money, no help from me." Her face was a battleground of emotions, fury, shame, disbelief, and a dawning understanding of just how thoroughly I had outmaneuvered her. She snatched the paper from my hand, her eyes scanning the words I'd so carefully crafted. It was brutal, a stark, unflinching account of her actions. It named names, dates, and the full extent of her manipulation. This is horrible, Marcus," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Is it inaccurate?" I countered. She couldn't meet my gaze. The truth was a harsh light, and she was blinking in its glare. Minutes ticked by in silence, broken only by her ragged breathing. Finally, with a defeated sigh, she pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling as she typed. I watched as she copied the text, word for word, into a new Instagram post. She hesitated for a moment before hitting hair, then looked at me, a silent plea in her eyes. I gave her a curt nod. The apology went live, a digital confession, broadcast to her curated world of followers. The comments started trickling in almost immediately. Shock, disappointment, a few messages of support for me from mutual acquaintances who now saw her true colors. Sarah stared at her phone, watching her carefully constructed online persona shatter in real time. She looked utterly broken. "There," she said, her voice barely audible. "Is that what you wanted?" I smiled, a genuine smile this time, though it probably looked terrifying to her. "Good. That's a good start, Sarah. Now for part 2 of our agreement." The flicker of hope in her eyes died instantly, replaced by a fresh wave of dread. "Part 2?" she echoed, her voice thin and reedy. "What more could you possibly want?" "Oh, this part isn't just about me, Sarah," I said, enjoying the slow reveal, the dawning comprehension on her face. "This part is about Derek." Her eyes widened. "Derek? What about him?" "You're going to break up with him, publicly. And when you do, you're going to explain in meticulous detail exactly how you used him too. How this whole reunion was just another one of your manipulations." She recoiled, as if I'd struck her. "No, I can't do that. He'll hate me." "He already does, Sarah, or at least he's well on his way." I paused for effect. "You see, While you were enjoying your romantic getaway, I took the liberty of sending him a little care package. Anonymously, of course. A care package? Evidence. Screenshots of your texts to your friends about how you were just stringing Marcus along until the time was right. Details of your plans to ease Derek back into the picture. That sort of thing. It seems Derek wasn't the end game, Sarah. He was just as disposable to you as I was. You were planning to use him for a place to stay, maybe some financial support, until something better came along, weren't you? The acidic taste of her own unshed tears must have been burning her throat. Her face was pale, her bravado completely gone. She knew I wasn't bluffing. The precision of my accusations, the details I was revealing, it was all too accurate. You wouldn't, she whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. Wouldn't I? I pulled out my phone again. This was my favorite quiet power move yet. I showed her a series of text messages. Not from me to Derek, but from Derek to a mutual acquaintance, who had, in turn, forwarded them to me with a note of disgust at Sarah's behavior. The messages were filled with confusion, then dawning anger, then outright fury, as he started to piece together how he'd been played. He's already suspicious, Sarah. Furious, in fact. Your little I need space act with me probably looks very different to him now, knowing what he knows. She stared at the messages, her shoulders slumping in defeat. She was trapped, her web of lies closing in on her from all sides. You want me to tell him I used him? She asked, her voice a dead monotone. And that you used me to get to him, and that your ultimate plan was to discard him too, once he'd served his purpose. The full, unvarnished truth, Sarah, just like the last post. I handed her another slip of paper, part 2 of her public penance. This time there was no fight left in her. She took the paper, her hand limp, and typed out the second confession. It was a brutal self-immolation, burning every bridge she had left. She detailed her calculated deception, painting herself as a user, a manipulator, someone who saw people as stepping stones. When she hit share on the second post, the silence in the apartment was heavy, thick with the ashes of her reputation. She looked up at me, her eyes hollow. Is it done now, Marcus? Are you satisfied? Can I have the car money? Or work out a plan to get the Mustang back? I glanced at my watch, meaningfully. The car sale was permanent, Sarah, I told you that. But don't worry. A predatory smile stretched my lips. I have one more gift for you. Her face, already a mask of despair, somehow managed to pale even further. The game wasn't over. Not by a long shot. A gift? Sarah's voice was barely a breath. She looked like a cornered animal, expecting the final blow. Indeed. I walked over to the small pile of her belongings I'd boxed up earlier, the few things she hadn't managed to spirit away before her grand departure. From a side pocket of one of the boxes, I retrieved a slim envelope. This, I believe, is yours. I handed it to her. She fumbled with it, her fingers clumsy. Inside was a Greyhound bus ticket. One way. To a small town in Ohio I vaguely remembered her mentioning as her hometown. Departing in 1 hour. She stared at the ticket, then at me, utter panic finally breaking through her exhausted facade. Ohio? A bus ticket? Marcus, I don't have any money. My friends, after those posts, they won't help me. Derek certainly won't. I have nowhere to go. An oversight on your part, I suppose, I said, my voice devoid of any inflection. You should have thought of that before you decided to play games with people's lives. And then, the final revelation. The one I'd held closest. The one that would sever any lingering thread of connection, any misplaced hope she might still harbor. You know, Sarah, I said, my voice dropping low, confidential. For a while there, I almost thought I loved you. Almost. But then, about 2 weeks into our whatever it was, I started to see the cracks, little inconsistencies, stories that didn't quite add up, the way you'd subtly manipulate situations to your advantage. Her eyes were wide, uncomprehending. "I suspected you were a user from week 2, Sarah," I stated plainly. "The road trip was just an opportunity to see how far you'd take it. You didn't disappoint." The hollow sound of that truth, far more than the slam of any apartment door, seemed to echo in the space between us. She had lost everything. Her car, her reputation, her boyfriends, her apartment, and now, even the illusion that she had ever fooled me completely. This was another quiet power move, the ultimate one, revealing that her entire charade had been, at least partially, under my observation for longer than she could have ever imagined. She looked down at the bus ticket, then back at me, her face a ruin. "I have nothing," she whispered. Not entirely true. I reached into my pocket and pulled out $200 bills. "Here. More mercy than you showed me. Enough for food on the way, maybe a cheap motel for a night when you get there until you figure things out with your parents." She stared at the money, then slowly, hesitantly, took it. Broken and defeated. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to fight for. She picked up the smallest of her bags, the one with her immediate essentials, and walked towards the door, a zombie-like shuffle in her step. As her hand reached the doorknob, I delivered the deepest cut, the one designed not for public consumption, but for her alone. "You know, Sarah," I called out, my voice soft but carrying an undeniable weight. "Our little discussion, when you first arrived, the one where you admitted to everything, where you begged and pleaded, I recorded it, audio and video." She froze, her back to me, her hand hovering over the doorknob. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the sudden, sickening realization. "Don't worry," I continued, my tone almost casual. "I'm not going to post it. That would be excessive, but check your email in about an hour. You'll want to see the file I'm not sending to your parents, just so you know what I have, and what I could do if I ever felt inclined." She didn't turn around. She couldn't. After a moment, she pulled the door open and stumbled out, disappearing down the hallway without a word. The click of the door latch sealing her exit was the sweetest sound I'd heard in months. From my apartment window, I watched the lumbering Greyhound bus pull away from the curb a little over an hour later. I saw her, a small, hunched figure, climb aboard, carrying only that single, sad-looking bag. No vintage Mustang, no swagger, just the quiet, anonymous shuffle onto a bus bound for a past she'd clearly tried hard to escape. A wave of something immense washed over me. It wasn't triumph, not exactly. It was relief. A profound, bone-deep relief. Months of her subtle manipulations, her gaslighting, her carefully constructed facade. It was all finally, definitively over. The constant low-level anxiety she'd induced in me, the feeling of always being slightly off balance, had lifted. I walked back to my laptop, opened the video file of our confrontation. Her tear-streaked face, her desperate pleas, her full confession. It was all there. I watched a few seconds of it, then dragged the file to the trash bin and hit empty trash. My revenge was complete. It had been proportionate. There was no need to hold on to that anymore. The threat had been enough. The apartment suddenly felt lighter, cleaner. The lingering scent of her perfume was finally gone, replaced by the clean, neutral scent of my own space. My space. It had been a hard lesson, a brutal one. Trust, I now understood, had to be earned, not blindly given, and actions, especially those as callous and manipulative as Sarah's, always have consequences. A few days later, I took the remaining cash from the Mustang sale, after deducting the cost of the PI and that one-way bus ticket, and walked into a different kind of dealership. No vintage beauties this time. I put a down payment on a sensible, reliable truck. A practical vehicle for a practical life. No flash, no drama. Just something to get me where I needed to go, on my own terms. This was my quiet power move. For myself. 6 months passed. Life settled into a new, calmer rhythm. I focused on my work, reconnected with old friends, started tentatively dating again, this time with my eyes wide open. Sarah's social media, which I checked occasionally out of a detached sort of curiosity, told a different story. Her follower count had plummeted. The few posts she made were subdued, tinged with a bitterness she tried to mask. She was still dealing with the fallout, the bridges she'd burned still smoldering. She was back in Ohio, living with her parents, working a dead-end job at the local mall, according to one particularly catty comment from a former friend. Then, one evening, a message popped up on my phone, an unknown number. "Hey, Marcus, it's Derek, from, well, you know. Listen, a mutual acquaintance finally filled me in on the full story, your side of it. Just wanted to say thanks. You saved me a lot more heartache, I think. I owe you a beer." I stared at the message, a slow smile spreading across my face. The final, unexpected twist. Perhaps some good had come out of all this mess, beyond just my own liberation. I met Derek for that beer a week later. It was surprisingly easy. We were two guys who'd been played by the same woman, two victims of the same manipulative tactics. There was a strange sort of camaraderie in that. We laughed as we compared notes, her little tricks, her subtle lies, the way she could turn on the charm or the tears like a faucet. Finding humor in the shared pain was cathartic, a final release. "You know," Derek said, swirling the amber liquid in his glass, "she actually tried to reconnect after that bus trip. Sent me this long, rambling email about how she'd made a huge mistake, how I was the one she truly loved." "What'd you do?" I asked, though I had a feeling I knew the answer. "Blocked her," he said with a grim smile. "Instantly. Fool me once, right?" We clinked glasses to that. The crisp autumn air felt cool on my face as we stepped out of the bar later that evening. We shook hands, a genuine gesture of understanding and, dare I say it, friendship. As I walked to my new truck, I realized something profound. The revenge, as satisfying as it had been in the moment, wasn't the real victory. The real victory was what came after. The self-respect I'd clawed back, the clarity I'd gained about what I wanted, and what I would never tolerate again. It was the understanding that genuine relationships were built on honesty and mutual respect, not on games and manipulation. I started the engine, the steady thrum a reassuring sound. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. I put the truck in drive and headed towards it, truly free, finally, for the first time in what felt like a very long time. The road ahead was open, and for once, I was the only one behind the wheel.